I got really positive feedback about my game, but it was definitely missing something. I had a few rough nights filled with nightmares just thinking about it. But one day, I found out the solution. The one final game mechanic that will change everything. Hey everyone, I'm Darenn. I left my game designer job at Ubisoft to realize my dream, crafting tiny indie games on my own. I'm currently creating my first game, Lueur and the Dim Settlers, a miniature survival city builder about bringing light back to the world. If you'd like to support, you can already wishlist the game on Steam. Thank you. So first, let's talk about the current mechanics of the game. In Lueur, the world is divided into squares. Each square can have a terrain and a structure. Each terrain have a list of possible structure you can build on it. For example, on a plain, you can build tents or a wheat field. On a mountain, you can build a mine or an observatory. But it gets a little bit more interesting when you take into account the adjacency. For example, on a plain next to a sea, you can now build a lighthouse. On a plain next to tents, you can build a church. You can guess what's in the darkness by looking at the square, so you can explore where there is something interesting for you. This makes for a fun and very simple system to understand. The problem is, although you can choose where to explore and what to build, you don't have enough ways to specialize the city. Let's say I want to focus my city on having a lot of mines to collect materials instead of relying on forests. Well, I can ignore the forests and only build mines, but that's all. Also, since we are depending so much on the terrains, we are not really encouraged to take such decisions. It's just way easier and practical to build mines on every mountains and also use the forests. Of course, you can still have your own playstyle and play a game to try another one, but it would be better if you could clearly build your decision. The solution I choose is to add science building that clearly focus on a specific playstyle. For example, you could build a forge that produces more materials for each mine you build. It's actually just like the tech tree that you can find in a lot of games, but instead of choosing a technology in a menu, you build a building that unlocks that technology. At the end of the game, just looking at your map, you see all the specialization decisions you made. But to do this properly, we have a few requirements for those technology buildings. First, they need to be unique. You can build them only once. It's not very interesting to learn the same technology or skill several times. They also need to be upgrades from existing buildings. That's to keep the building menu simple. Also, making them upgrades will mean players won't see them before they actually start building the basic buildings. They need some kind of exclusivity. If you can just build every technology building, there's not really a choice to make. We need a way to ensure that the player won't be able to build all of them, but we have to choose a handful of them. Finally, we also need a cost or a build condition. Without this, you could just build everything at the start of the game. And I found a very simple trick to comply with all those requirements while keeping everything very simple to understand. That is actually something I've tried to avoid since the beginning of development. I added a new resource. I thought about a lot of ways to do this. Adding a new menu for tech tree, adding a tier system like in RTS games. But everything would ask for a lot of work and would make the game more complicated and harder to explain. So here's how it works. Anytime you upgrade your main building, you get a few science points. You can use those science points to upgrade your buildings into science buildings. That's all.
Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science.
Let me explain a little bit why this works perfectly. Since the only way to get science points is to upgrade your main building, and that this main building can be upgraded only 3 times, you can't get infinite science points. You will have to choose which science building you want for this game and in which order. Want to try the other science buildings? Well, feel free to play again. Another nice effect is that it makes the main building upgrades really interesting to make. Also, since it's a resource, we can play with the amount of science points needed. Maybe some science buildings are stronger than others, but you need more points. You can also be sure that I will add special quests and events that will reward you with science points. To make sure the player understands it's a unique building, I use the science resource icon on their action icon. Also, to make things easier to understand, building a science building only costs science points and nothing else. This also increases the uniqueness of the building. The building still costs a lot though. Don't forget that it's expensive to upgrade your castle. So, what are the effects of those buildings exactly? Let's take a look. All those science buildings will, in a way or another, increase our production, reduce our costs, or unlock new unique actions. Before I start showing you all the cool buildings I added so far, do you have ideas for science buildings? Let me know in the comments and maybe I will add some of them into the game. Let's start with the tents and houses upgrade. The tannery. It allows you to also get materials when hunting. Perfect if you plan on hunting a lot. The forge. It produces more materials from each of your mines. The carpenter. It reduces the cost of all buildings by 15%. That one might be a little bit strong, but I love it. Then we have the upgrades for the lumberjack cabin. The sawmill. It allows lumberjacks to also get wood from meadows, so don't hesitate to chop down those forests. The forager lodge. It gives you the power to reforest any plain or meadow. The church can be upgraded into the temple. It makes prayers cheaper and more powerful. The lighthouse can be upgraded into the colossus. It produces more light from unoccupied seas. The fishing boat can be upgraded into the galleon. It produces more food from each of your fishing boats. The observatory can be upgraded into the watchtower. It produces a little bit more light and protects you from pillages. I love this one because it's actually really situational. On a map with orcs, elves or pirates, this is definitely a strong building to have. The ziggurat can be upgraded into the pyramid. It produces more light and gives you the power to irrigate deserts into plains. The caravanserai can be upgraded into the Great Bazaar. It increases trades production, as well as allowing you to trade light. Then we have 2 upgrades for the tavern. The marketplace, which allows you to trade big amounts of resources, perfect if you have too much stock of one resource type. The barracks, that produces a little bit more workforce and greatly reduce the price of fighting. Like the watchtower, very useful against orcs, elves and pirates. The windmill can be upgraded into the granary. It produces more food from each of your windmills. And finally we have all the animals that have very similar effects. The sheep pasture can be upgraded into the weaving mill, allowing you to breed sheep. The cow pasture can be upgraded into the milk house, allowing you to breed cows. And finally, the horse pasture can be upgraded into stables, allowing you to breed horses. So of course, I will certainly change the effect of those buildings and I will add some more. I'm very curious, which building is your favorite one? Let me know in the comments below. Now you know everything about this new science feature in my game. It was definitely a difficult design problem to solve, but surprisingly, the solution is very simple. Creating gamepad controls for a strategy builder game was also definitely a big challenge. If you'd like to know how I managed to do it, you should check out this video.
Tu me fais trop rire.
Et le final